My name's Tim Calvert, and I'm a collective member at Laughing Horse Books, and I'm sitting here with Alex Ansary, and we're at the Portland Iraqi Solidarity Committee Turkish Coffee Iraqi Tea booth, and we're just talking about the state of the world today. And
the world's gone nuts.
The world's gone.
You heard that one?
The world has gone nuts, and I'm really curious to hear what Alex has to say about what he thinks is going to happen next. Is there going to be a false flag attack in the United States before the election? Alex?
Weirdest thing is in Russia, they're already warning that the U.S. may be preparing some sort of false flag to get something going in Iran. Even the Russian military is saying this right now, and there are a couple other people that have raised that prospect of it happening to start the next phase of the war. Paul Craig Roberts is another guy, and he's been, recently on Russian TV talking about the U.S.-Georgian conflict. This is getting really weird, because on 8/88, Russia was brought their 9/11. United States and Israel funded the Georgian army to launch that attack on South Ossetia, and a lot of people are caught in the propaganda wars between the Russian media and the American media. And I don't think the full story of what's going on there right now has been told. I think there's a lot more information that's going to come out, and I think it's going to shock us.
Yeah, the whole Georgian issue was very odd. One of the weird things about the Georgian issue was on 8/8, the day that the Georgians attacked South Ossetia, or supposedly the Georgians attacked South Ossetia, all of the leaders, including Bush and Putin, were in Beijing. And so there was a very substantial gathering of world elite in Beijing on 8/8. I find it a little hard to believe that some secret attack was launched without some dialogue going on. So who knows? I mean, I don't know, but it was very odd that Putin was there with Bush on 8/8 in Beijing. Then the next thing we know, the Georgians supposedly attacked the South Ossetians viciously, supposedly. The Russians, not surprisingly, completely respond and push back the Georgians.
With the pretext, yes. So now they have the excuse to go and go after
right.
Georgia and develop this conflict with Ukraine right now.
Right. And now let's not forget either, and this is an embarrassment to the American peace movement, that the Orange Revolution, the Rose Revolution, these are the code words, the CIA code words for regime change in both Ukraine and Georgia, were carried out by the CIA using, quote, peaceful means to get a pro-Western government in these countries. And so,
very familiar.
Yeah, and so we have a situation where the U.S. is totally playing games. They're significantly manipulating populations. They're using people as pawns, and Russia's pushing back. Now the question is Russia really? I mean, I don't know. I don't know what games are being played, really. I still don't truly trust Putin either. The Russians themselves have engaged in false flag operations against their own people. There have been attacks on schools. There have been attacks on theaters. All these attacks have been staged black op operations that they blamed on the Chechens, and then they went in and killed everybody and totally put all sorts of fear-mongering going up. So the Russians, for sure, are capable of these same sort of activities. And I have to just say one last thing about Putin, who, I have just followed in the news like everyone else, but he was Man of the Year. Don't forget that. He was Times Man of the Year. And in the photo of Putin, he was displaying a very disturbing hand sign while he sat down, like a Masonic hand sign. And I don't know what that means. All I know was he was sitting there with a trippy hand sign, and he was Times Man of the Year. So is he on their side, our side, a different side? I'm not really sure. Didn't the Georgians expect the Russians to push back? Wasn't this like kind of inevitable that the Russian military would protect the Ossetians? And in fact, the Russians have interests in the Ukraine as well for the same reason. There are Russians who are claiming Russian citizenship in these countries. So we're setting ourselves up for conflicts in these different provinces. Similar to
the war.
Yeah.
They're staging much of the conflict.
Yeah. The conflict is being staged, and so what's next? Who knows? Alex?
Yeah. Well, I just want to briefly touch on Putin, because what a lot of people in the West don't understand is the connection that Putin and Bush have together.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just astronomical. You want to talk about people that vacation together, and there's so many pictures documenting this, fishing trips, Putin coming to Crawford. Now, this is totally insane for two people that are supposedly on different sides of a conflict. You know, there's also information about how Russia and the United States have been sharing weather modification since they both kind of jointly discovered it in the 50s and 60s. And a lot of info went back and forth on an agreement they wouldn't use it on each other's country, but they would continue to perfect it. Now we see China with it. In terms of the police state and riot cop uniforms, equipment, non-lethal weapons, same corporations globally making it all for all these different police departments, controlling all these different populations under a similar form of dictatorship, being entered into similar databases, sharing all of this information. And all these countries having, of course, false flag attacks, events happening, and then thus the afterblow of a police state crackdown on journalism, on the press, on free speech. Here in America, we've seen nothing yet, to be honest with you. I mean, they're setting a lot of things up for a reason, but they haven't lit the dynamite yet. They're just setting up the infrastructure. This stuff takes time to plan, and they were involved in it way before 9/11 with the tapping of Americans and the build-up of the prison industrial complex. I don't know about a false flag, but we can bring this back to economics, but I do see a big crash coming in the near future that some are speculating could be there to bring in the North American Union, thus the Amero, tri-country currency between the United States, Canada, and Mexico. And while all this chaos will be unfolding, you find out now the militaries are working together under joint drills in the case of martial law, quelling civil unrest, things of that nature. So it gets very dark and it gets very frightening when you realize that there's just a whole different world out there that Lou Dobbs is not telling us about, that Keith Olbermann or Obama or any of the other phony messiah figures coming out of the TV will not tell us about. They're bringing in the American nightmare.
It is a big American nightmare, and it's a big global nightmare that's kind of unfolding. I mean, I still am haunted by a Polish refugee from the internment camps, the German internment camps. He survived. He experienced a lot of negative things. It was, oh God, what was his? You see, if I was better at Polish names, I'd whip it out right now. But the bottom line, he ended up committing suicide, and one of his thoughts was that anything that happens anywhere can happen anywhere else in the world. And so this idea of a controlled police state breaking out, it's already been tested. It's been tested in many places. It was tested in Central America during the counterinsurgency campaign down there. I mean, a lot of the techniques that have already been developed in Central America are now being applied wholesale. For instance, torture. You know, this whole idea that, CSI movie show, we're going to get information from torturing people, that's bullshit. It's never been about getting information from people. That's not why you torture. You torture to create terror. That's what they did in Central America. They would torture people and then kill them. And then they would leave the bodies on the road for people to find. Torturing was totally a terror technique. It was never designed to get information. They already knew what they needed to know. They didn't give a shit who you knew. They wanted your body splayed out, evidence of torture all over it, and dead to frighten the hell out of everyone else. And that's
what the cartels are doing right now, just jumping in Mexico. I mean, they walked into a disco recently and threw 3 heads out on the floor to say we mean business. And these are the same guys with the Mexican military that are crossing the border, that are killing people, that are reporting about the abductions, the kidnappings that are going on there. So now in Mexico, things are so insane, they're saying, let's start chipping all the kids and all the people that are have some wealth, because of all the attacks, and then we'll be able to solve the problem. These billboards are coming up with, husband holding his wife. Take the chip, so everything's just going to be okay. But
You're referring to the inserted, implanted chip that is the darling of the police state. And, of course, this is always the way they visualized bringing it about. A fear campaign in which you will want the chip to be, quote, safe. But, of course, the chip is just the first, or not maybe the last step in...
What's weird is most of what we're talking about has already been seen in a movie, a lot of this stuff. And I've been thinking more about movies than everything I've ever seen my whole life in, like, the last couple months. More than even last year. The images that are out there, the stuff, the themes, the dark imagery, even the warped sexual content. You begin to objectively step back and you begin to see like a warping of the American psyche. And there are things seen in our media that are not seen in other parts of the world. And they have impacts on our subconscious and behavior in ways that we haven't fully woken up to yet. In the age of subliminals, which we're being bombarded with.
We're totally being bombarded with it. I mean, I just saw bits of Dark Knight, the new Batman film, and that's all over this. It's all over the idea of there were just weird scenes of urban chaos, of the police being called in, this weird psycho Joker dude, and who's the bloody hero? Some super elite man who's one of the richest men in the city who is the savior. It's like it's Ayn Rand, it's the fantasy of the Illuminati, it's like it's all about the elite taking total control of our lives. And you're right about the implanting of these images in the media. And, of course, it all flashes back to it's very funny how it was the nephew of Freud who really started to put it all together, put Freud's idea of how prominent the subconscious really is in people's minds to use. I mean, Freud came up with the idea that, oh yeah, we have a subconscious. It was his nephew who started the first PR companies in the United States. It was his nephew who realized that we can use this information about the subconscious of human brains to manipulate them ad nauseum.
Exactly.
And they've been doing it since then, and they've perfected the technique. They know how to do it. It's repetition. It's everywhere. It's putting the images out there. It's penetrating Hollywood. It's penetrating the radio. It's penetrating the TV, especially the TV. And we've seen it. And we've seen a lot of these sci-fi story plot lines unfold.
The aliens are coming. Oh boy, get the missiles ready. It's time for intergalactic war. No, but hang on here. The topic of superheroes comes to mind, and how the superhero and his role has changed over the last couple decades, and especially in the post 9/11 world. And no longer are heroes heroes. Our heroes are villains. They're killers. They're mercenaries. They're people that fight with the military. And you actually see news reports coming out saying the United Nations is working with Marvel Comics, or DC is working with the Pentagon, or there'll be a headline saying the Pentagon is recruiting comic book writers to give them ideas for these crazy types of weapons they want to develop through DARPA's facilities. So they've altered what the hero is, and they brought us false heroes, basketball players, people chasing balls, people that, doesn't mean a lot to us today. What they throw at us as a hero, it'll mean even less tomorrow. Because the world's changing and we need real heroes. And that's the last thing that they really project out in the media, is the real savior.
There's so many different ways in which we're being screwed by the corporate media. I mean, the projection of false heroes is definitely one of them. I mean, when I think about the sort of thing that needs to be talked about, the sort of behaviors that should be celebrated in the media, and how, in fact, far from it, these behaviors are never celebrated.
The way they handled 9/11, before I looked at the inside job aspect of it, but before, like the day of, when I knew something was wrong, was the hate and tear that immediately was coming out of the screen, where I knew intuitively, okay, they're setting up Afghanistan for something big. They've got those graphics ready, they've got everything ready, and they're moving in, and I was thinking about Afghanistan in the months before that, feeling like something wasn't quite right. And then I went and learned about how, back to the Russians, helping the Americans in the days prior to 9/11 amass troops in Uzbekistan and Tajikistan. And then things get a lot clearer.
Right. I mean, what we need to be seeing in the media, what we need to be seeing are examples of people behaving in cooperative ways with each other that demonstrate solidarity with each other, that demonstrate the ability to listen, the ability to tolerate, the ability to compromise, the ability to think rationally, celebrating rational thinkers, celebrating people who work hard without getting a lot of glory. These are the sort of values that we desperately need. The value of conserving. I mean, all this crap about global warming going on right now, still the federal government, still Al Gore isn't talking about conservation, using less. The whole biofuel thing is all about keep driving your Hummer. We'll just burn food instead of oil.
Right, I mean, if they've taken out the element of deforestation, which has even bigger impact on climate change than CO2. And then the other thing that I want to mention is they said the Arctic was going to be melted by the end of the summer, and it actually expanded 30% in the last 12 months. That new scientific report came out. And so this is completely different than what... we're doing this in the rain, everybody. And people are walking by, and we're on East Burnside on 10th outside Laughing Horse bookstore at a random little get-together, and that's what it's coming to. People are just going to... You start to see people walk around the streets. They don't feel quite well. They don't know what's going on. The weather's changing. There's talk of war and more wars. The economy's falling. But they have no sense of a grounding connection. And that is exactly what has to be provided for people that have been lied to their entire life, because I know people around me in these streets I live in are going to panic when things happen, that don't have any food, that did not get prepared, that think that it is, in fact, the Iranians and the Persians that are invading instead of the Chinese.
I mentioned this earlier, but I'll mention it again. I mean, the whole aspect of the global weather and its relationship to sunspots, I think I just want to urge everyone to take a look at what sort of correlation we have between the weather and sunspots. And the fact is, we haven't had a sunspot since October of 2007.
Next year.
Well, people are predicting next year, but they actually don't know what the hell's going on. And I just want to emphasize what Alex said about getting prepared. Katrina was a pretty good example of how you better be prepared to evacuate the city on your own. And I want to urge everyone out there that getting a bike now, while you can still afford one, while you can still purchase one, is a very good idea, because when you can't get a bike anymore, when this global economy starts to disintegrate and the imports dry up, you're not going to be able to just go down to the bike shop and get a bicycle to ride out of the city. There won't be any more bicycles anymore. So get your bike ready. Get your stuff ready.
Get a bike, Tim.
Well, Alex, I know where you can go.
All right. To the corner of what and what? Down the street. Actually, you've got a real bike shop.
Yeah, there is a real bike shop, City Bikes. And I want to also say, put your money in the raffle, because there's a bike right there that you can win today.
Right now.
Right now.
All right. So the bike I get's going to have all kinds of, contraptions on it, so... And the crab is the fan. You just kind of turn your bike into a mobile pack and just...
Well, it's totally true, and I just want to point out to people, it's hard to see, but this wheel right here, this entire cart is a bicycle trailer. And I towed it from my house with all this entire thing, with all the equipment needed to set up this stand by bike. So I partially did this as a demonstration project for getting ready to be a refugee. So
anybody who has any skills when it comes to building something out of nothing is going to make a lot of friends in the near future. So there's some of you out there that are going, I only know about half of what these guys are saying, but I know how to work with my hands. Well, figure out what your number one assets are and perfect them and have your tools ready to go. This is stuff that I don't know. I don't work with my hands, but you know what? I'm smart enough and intelligent enough to realize that that's the number one value and asset right now that we're looking at, being able to do things, start fires, identify edible plants, start a car that's been broken down with very little materials. You got to aspire to be MacGyvers. That's my attitude, and pack my coat up with all kinds of little
That's right. Getting equipment while it's still relatively cheap. That's kind of the name of the game right now. I think for people who are wondering what the hell to do, well, slowly start prepare. Slowly start getting fancy camping equipment. Slowly start getting stuff you're going to need. I mean, practice going camping. Take a look around you.
And then people are getting real gun-ho. Just be honest with you. The guns, the fear, the ammunition, some of that stuff you got to let go. If you're going to go that route and do that, fine, but there's a point where you got to stop thinking about war and you got to start thinking about peace if you don't want to go insane. Because there are enemies out there that you cannot take down. They have bigger guns and lasers and all kinds of things. And no one's telling you to stand down, but I am telling you to look a little bit further than just this whole, we're going to have to go to war someday. You know, you may just need to run.
I want to kind of emphasize that point. I think Bob Marley said, better to fight and run away and live to fight another day. Mao also said, when you're fighting a war, only attack when you're strong and the enemy is weak. I mean, it's a total waste of time to throw yourself up against a phalanx of hyper militarized riot cops who've got God knows what high-tech weapon they're going to throw at you.
Right now?
Denver, right? Yes.
All right.
As we speak. I mean, they're using chemical weapons, they're using sonic weapons, they're using microwave weapons, not to mention all the obvious weapons like a big stick to beat you on the head with.
And the TV.
And the TV.
Yeah, they got Fox News going there right in the middle of the crowd, a bunch of anarchists going, what's your message? Just tell Fox News. And they're all just like, clearly like, not going to be friendly with this Fox News anchor. Look at how evil these people are. They don't like free speech. They don't want to talk to me. Ah, help me. Oh, he pushed me. Oh, it's getting scary down here, Alice. I'm in a mob of angry young people. They have black masks. Help me. As he reaches out for the TV and they cut transmission. It's total propaganda, but I also question some of these black bloc characters that are putting out these flyers, create violence, disrupt DNC, charge the convention. Like, wait a minute, they're waiting for you to do this, just like in Seattle in 1999. And some people do question that event as well as why that happened. A certain element broke off and began the destruction that were not arrested by police officers that actually were crashing in a city building. They're not evicted by the police nor the owners of the building. And Alex Jones does document that in Police State 2000.
I just want to talk a little bit about strategy as the police state kind of tightens its grip. The DNC and the RNC are two kind of coming up examples where, let's face it, a false flag attack is definitely within the realm of possibility. But in terms of demonstrators' approach to the problem of these big events, which are being stage managed by the corporate media and the elite to send out just the message they want to send out, which includes demonizing the protesters. So I just want to emphasize to people the strategy of clearly identifying your own demonstration target. For instance, at the DNC and the RNC, who really is the target? Now, you can bet that your little sign and your little demonstration is not going to be portrayed in the way that you might want it portrayed. Like, you're not going to have Fox News honestly covering any sort of progressive demonstration. That's
run out a crowd
of
angry people going, tell me what you believe in.
Right. So it's not going to happen that way. So what is the activist to do? Well, the activist should be thinking about targeting who? Well, the media. That's one obvious target. And two, the delegates themselves and their special venues. What does that mean? That means getting creative. That means spreading out. That means going in disguise. That means not being corralled by the cops so their high-tech weapons can be used against you. So, and that also applies to if martial law comes down. Don't congregate with other progressives and people who are dissidents against the state. That's what they want, so they can round you all up. We need to spread out, keep clear on our true enemies, keep clear on our true friends. Our true enemies are not actually the cops, even though at the time when they're beating you up, you might feel like they're your true enemy. No, they're not the true. They're just a pawn in the game. Let's keep in mind who the king and the queen are behind all these other pieces. Don't get distracted by the people they send out to kill you, because they're not going to be the ones that you want to get at. They're just grunts who are being paid more than you. So you've got to keep that in mind. And so what we have to do is disperse and keep the targets clear. Keep the targets clear. What are the targets? The corporate media. They're spread out. They've got offices all over the city. They've got broadcasting towers. They've got individuals who are in the news. They've got their stupid fucking vans that are obvious little places where things could be done. And they've got other ways that we can put pressure on them directly. And then we've got delegates. We've got the individuals who are supposedly playing the charade as well. Pressure can be put on them individually.
And what I want to add to that is we have to keep the energy high and clear, because when people are panicking, there's a lot of people that are going to rush to grab the gun or rush to grab the knife or rush to run out and fight someone real quick before actually, because they don't know nonviolent communication skills. It's the last thing they know. Opposite. Women's safety is going to be at an all-time low. I have a lot of forecasts in that direction for a wide variety of reasons. Things are not high enough energetically, and it has to get to that point for people to survive physically, psychologically, and mentally. Because when these things happen, communication will be cut to a certain degree. And people are going to have some sort of, I think there's a reason more people are trying to learn about meditation, mastering their emotions instead of letting their emotions master them, because we do live in a world where the emotional world, the emotional body, through the media is targeted, through songs, through all these things. We're clearly affected by the war emotionally. And the natives used to clear out their war spirits before they came back to the village. And we do the opposite here in the country, and we bring them directly back into law enforcement. So it's accelerating the insanity process, and we just need something to shake up that whole foundation. I don't know, man, if it's going to be anything short of a pole shift.
Well, another concrete thing I want to urge people to do is to start learning, if they don't already, but it's a good time to start playing chess again. I think playing a game of chess, playing a game of Go, it seems kind of minor, but it's actually not so minor, because it's it teaches you that in struggle there are multiple layers of struggle. And right now, the American population is being dumbed down, like Alex was just saying, to respond emotionally only to struggle. And that's the most vulnerable level for people to be at. Oh my God, there's a cop. I'm going to go beat him. What? You're going to go beat the cop up? Good luck. When people respond,
people do think this way.
Yeah,
yes,
when people respond emotionally, they're easily defeated. Easily defeated. When you study the great chess masters, Bobby Fischer, Boris Spassky, blah blah blah, all these guys, when they were really playing high-level chess games, of course there was an emotional component. They're moving things on the board, but they're also trying to psych each other out. That's always been part of the struggle. There's the psychic level, there's the on-the-ground level, there's all sorts of levels. But the key for all of us as activists, as earth warriors, as people who are trying to live into the next generation, keep in mind that the struggle is operating on multiple levels and layers, and that the pawns that come out, the bishops and the rooks that come after you, these are just small players. These are not the game. The game is bigger than that. The game is bigger than any one piece, including your piece. So don't lose perspective on both your own role and the role of others around you. Keep in mind that there's a much bigger, broader game being played, and that you can have an impact, but you won't have an impact if you react emotionally. You'll be checkmated before you even get out of the starting gates.
Yeah, I don't know what to add to that. It's absolutely right. I think that's horse nonsense. Total rubbish. That's that liberal talk you've been hearing. Yeah, I don't know what it's going to take, but yeah, we're pretty close to that point. Be grateful for everything you got.
That's
right.
Right.
Every piece of food, every little morsel of organic salad that you put in your mouth, all those nuts. You're talking about a lot of different products and stuff that goes in your body that aren't going to be around in the future. Talk about victory gardens of World War II. This will need to be a little bigger than those victory gardens. There's a lot more people here now, and there are less farms. And the farms that are here will be bought by foreigners, banksters, gangsters, other criminal elements in the next year, when a lot of them can't afford to pay the bills any longer. And this is where the heartbreak comes in. It's true.
Well, and I just want to say to the Americans who are overweight and eating the wrong kind of foods, that you can do it. You can do it. Most of the world lives on starch. Most of the world lives on a diet that, from our perspective, seems really tough. But in reality, it's a much more sustainable human diet when you can live on taro root, potatoes, starchy root crops, and leafy greens. That's the sort of food that you're going to be eating in the future. Nuts, berries, roots, tubers. These are the things that you can store. These are the things that you'll get. You'll wish for the days that when you had wheat and rice and the heavy-headed grains. Even those will be difficult to get in the near future. But that's okay, because you can still live on these other foods. You will be thinner. You will be smaller. Your children will be smaller, but it will be okay, because you'll be able to do it yourself. You won't be reliant on Monsanto or Cargill or any of these other corporations that really just soon see you dead as feed you a meal.
And we have to reconnect with nature, and a lot of us have a sense of pain in our hearts because we don't have the community that we want, living off the land outside of Portland in that field that we all dream of, an hour out of town, where the reality is a lot of us are stuck here because the poverty level is increasing. A lot of people aren't even ready for the 40% jump in electric bills that's coming this winter, in addition to all the others. We got to find nature here in the city. We have to understand that nature already is here. It's just we as men, our society, men and women, we have grown at a speed that is not in sync with nature. So the issue is not necessarily time speeding up, or our activity, human activity, speeding up. And we need to take some lessons from nature that's in here in our own backyard, because that's the only way that people are going to find a sense of grounding when everything else seems totally insane. A lot of people are already feeling that. And the other thing, jump this back to you and you can add in there, is to get physically active. Get physically active because we're not as physically active as we used to be, that we have a lot more diseases out there. People aren't as physically strong. And when you talk about the journey of sperm over time, father, son, generation, and so on, you become a lazier society as this continues. More alcohol, more genetically modified food. This stuff continues to affect the children. More diseases popping up in the future. I mean, we all wonder why it's here in the first place, GMO and the Monsanto death seed. But over time, I mean, we're going to face some major challenges as a species in terms of our ability to procreate. And I don't think anyone should be tampering with the human body at this time, no matter what they think about overpopulation. These people that are involved in science, you start to take a look at the things out there that are affecting male sperm counts at an all-time low. I mean, you start to see the hormonal imbalances in both men and women. Weird stuff going on with their systems. Whatever the heck is going on with the trails up there. We've got to take care of our body.
And just, circling back to the idea of how do you take care of your body, well, one obvious way to do that is get on a bike. Start going to the...
Heavy bags.
That's right. Well,
heavy bag. You can put a
heavy bags,
Vader helmet on the top of it.
weeding your garden, just getting out there and actually moving around, because you're right. An athlete who's in a sporting event, the way their stance is with bent knee and often rocking back and forth, because you don't want to be standing flat-footed when the shit hits the fan. You want to be in a position to move.
Yeah.
Or run like crazy the other way, which is, running.
Run. Russians are here. Run. Just leave your TV.
Running is going to be probably the first step.
Man, put your TV down, put your microwave on. Don't you see the Chinese ship right there? They're coming for your daughter. I'm sorry, I got my bullhorn with fresh batteries, not for the next protest. But to be the only guy in the neighborhood saying, no, you need to go east.
I want to also just talk about some other simple technologies that people can use in a post-crash sort of environment. And one of my favorite ones is the bell. And I just bring that up because people should think about having some identifying markers that allow you to approach a group in a friendly way. Because, of course, if the grid goes down and the electricity goes off and all the street lights are gone and lights in general are hard to find, people are going to get really paranoid about people who are approaching you in the dark, because you won't know who they are. And so,
The little
white armbands, little. You're right. Little bells, little identifying markers that can make sure that you're not going to get shot by friendly fire because they don't know who you are. But the reality is, confusion is going to be the name of the game in a post-crash scenario without electricity, without lights. People don't know how to act. People are so not used to the dark that they're not going to respond well.
And that goes back into training. Rewilding your senses and getting more in tune with nature and practicing getting out of the city completely and honing on your night vision, your natural night vision, which, we don't have it, at the same level as a cat, and they can see a lot of things that we can't see. We see about 3% of what's out there. There's a lot out there that we don't see or process, but we also pick up on in other ways. So work on your night vision. The other thing I want to mention is definitely have a pack together. And that kind of goes without saying. Have the basic fundamentals together. Lighter is better, but in a situation where you're not going on a trip, you're going to want a variety of stuff, such as a first aid kit. That's a whole other conversation. But if you are someone with a bike, figure out how you're going to coordinate that with your bike. How you're going to pack that out. Know the routes out. I could tell you Springwater Corridor is one route out of Portland that heads towards Estacada, towards the Pacific Crest Trail. There's other routes, but anyone leaving Portland in a case of some type of event, I would be thinking more in the direction of Central Oregon, away from the mountains, away from Mount Rainier, away from Mount Hood, away from Mount St. Helens or Mount Adams, if the volcanoes are in fact erupting. Because there's also a lot of earth changes taking place, and we're right in the hot zone here, where they say the next big earthquake cause a magnitude 9, which would trigger a tsunami.
Right, and that's the sort of Katrina situation that we could be facing here in Portland. Why would we have to leave the city of Portland? Well, if there was a 9.0 earthquake and all the utilities went down, that would be one reason. We would probably have to take action in order to just survive in the city. So, get to know the near far around where you live. And get to know how to get there. And dress rehearsals are not such a bad idea at this stage in the game.
But we're never going to be able to run from our problems, and we're going to be running in a place along with other people that are panicked, some very violent, some very out of balance and confused, some very territorial, some very predatory. In nature, towards women, I think there'll be human trafficking elements we'll be facing in the future as well with the invaders if we have some sort of a crisis. I'm convinced of that. So where are you running to, and who's going to be greeting you with what kind of guns is the question. Types of technologies that can detect your body's heat from space have been around for a long, long time, and we know the government has a major interest in the forest. That's why they took them over a long time ago and also signed them over to the UN and other foreign interests. So it all begins to get crystal clear. We're not going to be able to hide out there unless you already have a spot you're pretty confident about. Maybe something on the ground would be nice. A tunnel. There were people hiding underground way before the age of cameras to survive. The Underground Railroad, anybody? All right, so this is pretty interesting. Will we have to go back to that sort of rat in a tunnel type of lifestyle? So now the conversation is turning really dark, but the reality is you do have to be prepared to alter your life big time to survive. We're gonna have, we're gonna end up in the forest. We're gonna have to deal with each other out there. A lot of stuff.
That's right. And I don't know. Don't get too depressed about it. Just take one step every day and enjoy what you can while you can, and learn to breathe. And remember, it's not all about you anyway. Your life, your death. It's only a little bit on this whole play. So let's not. Don't ratchet up your own importance beyond where it really is at. You're just an overstuffed American at the moment. And let's not, the world doesn't owe you a life. The world doesn't owe anyone a life. It's all recycled, it's all composted, and that's okay.
See, I picture a whole lot of people, running on a slip and slide, into the mud, rolling around in chocolate and hot dogs. Like, that's the image I see. So, look, I think this is a big game, though. You know, people talk about angels and demons, the supernatural realm, UFOs. I think there's something bigger, clearly, that meets the eye. I think there are positive beings out there in the universe. I'm convinced of that, be they angels, UFOs, extraterrestrials. I don't get into what species are the good guys and bad guys. I just feel, in my heart of hearts, there is a dark energy out there. Call it Luciferian, call it serpent-like. I feel that. I also feel that there's another energy out there that wants to see humanity come up. And I see these dark forces bringing upon these wars, poisoning our bodies to keep us in a lower state of consciousness at a time where there's a lot of information available that wasn't around a couple hundred years ago as to different theories about our origins, what brought the human species to the planet, all these different ideas, things that parallel the Old Testament in numerous ways, but their take on God or gods is a little bit different. You know, we are in the age of information. This could be the age of enlightenment, and it will be used in the end to either help us ascend to the next level or completely destroy ourselves, or maybe both at the exact same time.
Okay, well, I think we've wrapped it up here today. It's Tim Calvert and Alex Ansary at the corner of 10th and East Burnside, and we're here at the Laughing Horse block party, which is kind of winding down at the moment. And really glad that we've got this video opportunity. So thank you very much.
Yeah, do one in your own hometown as well. AlexAnsary.com.